I'm Christy Patton, Dr. Christy Patton. I'm counselor to President Linda Mills, who sends her greetings, and I'm a professor at NYU Steinhardt. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the fourth NYU in Dialogue event in the series. For those that have attended events already, welcome back. I see some frequent flyers here. And if this is your first one, you're really in for a treat listening to experts and learning from experts as they model what it means to understand multiple perspectives and ideas that may be different from those that we hold. Often this happens on the same stage, but given our topic, especially at this time of the semester, after the great New York City earthquake and a looming solar eclipse, we felt anxiety needed 2 weeks. So this week you will hear about good anxiety, and next week you will hear about the anxious generation. Different perspectives from top scholars at NYU to be curious about, contrast, and compare. But before that, and as we have done at each event, we want you to take 2 minutes to introduce yourself to a person around you that you may not know. And you're just going to introduce yourself. You're going to be in dialogue very quickly. Why'd you come? What do you hope to learn? Who are you? I'm going to say go, and I'll bring you back. So go. Okay, why don't you come on back? Come on back. Every time we do this, people want to keep talking, which I think shows how starved we are for just general connection and conversation with people around us. So that's what this is about, being in conversation and just connecting with those that are up on the stage. I think you're going to find that we have two amazing speakers this afternoon. So you're like I said, in for a treat. We are shifting this programming a little bit. You know, we don't want you to be anxious about missing the eclipse and add to your anxiety. So we are going to try to finish right around 3:15, and then you can, like I said, go outside and stare at the sun. But first, let me introduce our fabulous panelists that will be in dialogue. First, there's Dr. Wendy Suzuki. She is the Cheryl Kushner Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences and award-winning professor of neuroscience and psychology at New York University. She is a celebrated international authority on neuroplasticity and was recently named, and I didn't know this, Wendy, but this is really cool, one of the top 10 women changing the way we see the world. So she's going to totally change the way we see the eclipse and the entire world around us and the cosmos and all that today. From Good Housekeeping magazine, and regularly serves as a sought-after expert for publications, including the Wall Street Journal, Forbes, and the Washington Post. And if you haven't watched her TED Talk, you're one of the few people that haven't. Her TED Talk has more than 60 million views, and she's the author of 2 books, Good Anxiety, Harnessing the Power of the Most Misunderstood Emotion, and Healthy Brain and Happy Life, a personal program to activate your brain and do everything better. Dr. Suzuki will be in conversation with Dr. Zoe Ragusios, who is the Vice President for Student Mental Health and Wellbeing at NYU. She oversees mental health clinical services and also the mental health promotion services for NYU students across the globe. She was hired in 2004, and her first task at NYU was to start the Wellness Exchange Hotline, which she didn't say this, but I'm going to add this, which is an exemplary model for universities and was highlighted in our self-study visit by our accreditation team as an exemplar. She is, yes.
Not as impressive as changing the world, but, you know.
She's a clinical social worker licensed in New York State and received her PhD in social work from New York University. So please join me in welcoming Wendy and Zoe.
All right. Hi, Wendy.
Hi, Zoe.
I think this is 3 times in 3 weeks.
I know. We get to meet once a week.
You're my new best friend. So we're going to talk all about anxiety.
Yes.
And you wrote a book.
Yes.
And it's called Good Anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if we could just start with you saying why you thought this was an important topic to tackle.
Yeah. So this book came out in 2022, but I actually wrote it before the pandemic. Can anybody remember before the pandemic? And I focus on this topic, frankly, because I noticed that my students in the College of Arts and Science seemed more anxious than they had before. But then if I sat back and I was a little bit more honest, I thought it's not just them that's more anxious. I'm more anxious. My friends are more anxious. My colleagues are more anxious. And I knew as a neuroscientist there were so many tools that we know from psychology and neuroscience to try and alleviate some of the negative effects of anxiety. So it started off focusing on that. What can I do? What tools can I bring to just lower our level of anxiety?
And so before we continue, I wonder if you could tell us in sort of the simplest form your definition of anxiety.
Yeah, that's a great place to start. So my definition of anxiety is that feeling of fear and worry that typically comes with situations of uncertainty. Does that resonate with anybody? The uncertainty is really what kind of activates that. And so you could understand why during the pandemic, I'd never experienced a pandemic before, that anxiety levels really raised up worldwide. But that's my simple definition of anxiety.
And this wasn't sort of in the plan to say, but I know that everyone makes fun of us around some people's reaction to the earthquake. But I think it is because we've been bombarded and are a little bit traumatized by a lot of what's gone on in the world, and that anxiety has caused some people to be really worried about, things we can't control, the uncertainty. So don't make fun of us.
Yep.
So I've heard some of your talk before, and you referred to the big, fat, fluffy brain, which is a really awesome visual. And I wonder if you could talk to us about the brain and the role it plays in the way we feel. And in particular, how it relates to when and how we feel anxious.
Yeah, that's such a great question because I like to say in all of these talks that the human brain is really the star of the show. It's the human brain. It's our brain, not Einstein's brain or Marie Curie's brain, but our brain in our head that defines how we see the world, how we smell, how we feel, how we touch, how we hear, and how we feel emotionally about the world. It is literally the most complex structure known to humankind. And usually I have a slide that I show of a real preserved human brain, but actually I have something better that I wanted to bring today. Could you turn this mic on, please? So in this hat box, I have the best teaching tool in the world. It is a preserved human brain. This is Betty. She lives in my lab. She has been at NYU ever since I arrived in 1998. She's a preserved human brain. She's preserved in formaldehyde. Aren't you glad you're in the front row? This is the front of the brain, prefrontal cortex right behind your forehead. We're going to talk a lot about that in emotional regulation and the brain areas that get affected in stress and anxiety. The back of the brain is here. This is primary visual cortex. Even if your eyes work beautifully, without the primary visual cortex, you are blind. You cannot see. That is how important this part of the brain is. If we turn the brain over, you can see some of these key areas. This nerve right here, I'm just going to walk around a little bit so more people can see the brain. Yeah. So this is the optic nerve. It's an X. You see that X right there? That is the optic nerve. That is where all the visual nerve endings from our eyes, from our retina, are going into, and they're traveling back to this primary visual cortex. Here is the cerebellum. Cerebellum means little brain, and it is so important for our ability to walk. If I didn't have my cerebellum, I wouldn't be able to walk without tripping and holding this precious brain. And also you see here, this is the temporal lobe. This is also the most photographed brain. This is the temporal lobe. My favorite lobe of the brain Alzheimer's disease. Yes, you were about to say that, I could tell. The hippocampus sits right here below the cortex. Hippocampus means seahorse, and the hippocampus looks like a seahorse. Hold on, make sure. That's a quick tour of the brain. Oh, I forgot the most important thing. Why is it so important? It's not only the most complex structure known to humankind, but if we go down here, this is part of the brain stem. Do you know what gets controlled here is your heart rate and your respiration rate. That's how we could, without thinking about it, you don't, come to one day and say, oh, I forgot to beat my heart. No, it's automatically controlled in the brainstem. That's why damage to the brainstem, you're gone without that. It controls life, it controls thought. This is your personality. So I'm literally holding somebody in my hands right now. So that is the human brain.
It's the only reason I agreed to do this. I wanted to see the brain. So the brain controls our emotions,
Yes.
among many other things.
Yes.
And so therefore it controls when we feel anxiety.
Yes.
And I wonder if you could talk about you clearly think there's such a thing as good anxiety.
Yeah.
And so can you just tell us about good anxiety?
Yeah. What does good anxiety mean? My new friends here that I'm in dialogue with asked me, they said they came to this talk because they wanted to understand what good anxiety is. So I call it good anxiety because evolutionarily, that emotion, the emotion of anxiety, which is a normal human emotion, evolved not to annoy us like it does every day, okay, it does, but it actually evolved to protect us. It's easier to understand if you think back to some of our ancestors. 2.5 million years ago, imagine a human ancestor, maybe she just had a baby, she's looking for food, and she hears the crack of a twig, or maybe she feels an earthquake for the very first time. Anxiety, like we all feel even today. Why? Because it could be a warning. Maybe it's a big animal coming to charge her. Maybe it's just a small earthquake that she doesn't have to worry about. But that emotion of anxiety releases all the stress hormones and releases what we've all heard of. Who's heard of fight or flight? Fight or flight. It releases fight or flight, and what that does for our physiology, it's a brain-centered protective response that gets us ready to either run away or fight. How does it do that? It shunts blood from our digestion and reproductive organs towards our muscles. It increases our heart rate so we can run away or fight. It increases our respiration rate. It opens up the iris of our eyes so we see everything clearly, and we are ready to go. It puts us in protective mode. And for that person who just felt an earthquake, that absolutely makes sense. That is the protection, and that's why we have survived today. And you might say, okay, that sounds good, but what about me? I still hate my anxiety, and it's not good. Well, anxiety feels not so good these days because the level is ramped up way too high. And so what we need to do is learn how to turn the volume down on our anxiety to get to good anxiety, protective levels of anxiety. So that's the basic idea behind why I entitled this book, Good Anxiety. And actually, can I ask you, one of the most common questions that I get in these talks is, what about bad anxiety? There is really bad clinical anxiety. That is your specialty. What is that?
Yeah.
And how do you deal with that in your work?
So anxiety is the same, but it's across a spectrum, right? And so we want people to stay on the healthier and safer end of the anxiety spectrum, and everything that you're going to talk about are ways, like bringing down the volume and other things that I know that you're going to mention, keep people on the healthier end of anxiety. And when it becomes bad is when, for example, you can no longer utilize the techniques that you are offering to make yourself feel better. Or when you can't identify the stressor that's causing you the anxiety. So you've given many examples. We could give many more of sources of anxiety. But there are some people who simply cannot identify why they feel so anxious, and
Yeah.
therefore they can't turn the volume down and all of the things because
Yeah.
they're not so sure what it is that's getting them to that place. So that might be a time where you might seek clinical support, or just generally, and I say this about almost every sort of clinical diagnosis, if you find that it impedes your ability to function, and that no intervention of the kind that you describe or of any others help you, then there are specialists who can assist you. And frankly, we will assist you in, at least in the beginning, in very many of the same ways that you talk about, and then obviously layer upon that other interventions if those don't work.
Thank you. I just want to add one more term. We talked about good anxiety, but I like to refer to the anxiety that my book and all of these techniques approach as everyday anxiety. Everyday anxiety is that anxiety you feel as an NYU student, as an NYU parent, or an NYU worker, just dealing with all the things we have to deal with. That is probably 80% of the anxiety spectrum, and then we get onto the end where Zoe is the expert. That is that clinical level where these interventions, the more naturalistic interventions, don't help, and that's where medical professionals are needed.
Thank you. And so let's talk about the steps to trying to keep us in good anxiety, achieving it and maintaining good anxiety. And you talked about turning down the volume.
Yeah.
How does somebody do that?
Yeah, so that's the first big step. And so I'm going to give you 3 approaches. This is the first step of good anxiety. There's 3 steps that we'll get to. Step 1 is learning how to turn the volume down. Here, there are so many different techniques. I'm going to give you my top 3. Number 1, breath, deep breathing, breath work. Why? Because everybody raised their hand when I said, who's heard of fight or flight? Has anybody, yes, thank you. Has anybody heard of rest and digest? Rest and digest? Okay, 1, thank you so much. What is rest and digest?
It's another section of the parasympathetic nervous system.
Excellent.
In contrast with the firefly.
Perfect. A budding biologist back there. So rest and digest is another terminology for it is the parasympathetic nervous system. And it works equal and opposite to our fight or flight that's more popular, and we all know about it. And what does it do? Well, it actually lowers our heart rate. It lowers our respiration rate. It shunts blood from our muscles towards our digestion and reproductive organs so that we can relax and chill out over the weekend. This is not a system that only the special people have. Everybody has this system. And so instead of worrying so much about your fight or flight, what I would encourage you to do is think about what you can do to activate your rest and digest, your parasympathetic nervous system. And of all those things that I said, I can't shunt my blood, I can't lower my heart rate, I can't make my irises go big or small, but I can control my breathing. And so this is why monks, hundreds, if not thousands of years ago, realized how powerful deep, intentional breathing is. You are literally activating that parasympathetic nervous system, and you are getting that full rest and digest response. Don't believe me? Let's all do it. Just 2 rounds, we're going to do what's called boxed breathing. And what it is it's my favorite, easy to do approach. You can pull it out of your pocket right before you go into that difficult conversation. It is 4 counts you inhale, 4 counts you hold it at the top, 4 counts you exhale, 4 counts you hold it at the bottom. We're going to do 2 rounds. I invite you to close your eyes or at least look down. Come sitting and sit up straight so your chest is nice and open, no slouching. Put your feet on the ground so all 4 points of your feet go on the ground. And let's all deep inhale, 3, 2, 1. Hold at the top, 3, 2, 1. Big exhale, 3, 2, 1. Hold at the bottom, 3. One more time, big inhale, 3, 2, 1. Hold at the top, 3, 2, 1. Big exhale. 3, 2, 1. Hold at bottom. 3, 2, 1. Hold there. Breathe normally. Feel that the room shifted a little bit as we did that. The calmness came in. Slowly open your eyes. How many people feel a little bit calmer? Can they feel that? So that was a minute. That is something you can all do. Don't wait until you have a terribly difficult conversation before you practice it. Practice it at home, but very, very powerful. That is my tip number 1 for turning the volume down. Tip number 2 is mindset. So mindset is how you think about the world. And what you think about changes your physiology. And my favorite example to show that is one that was done by Aaliyah Crum. She's a psychologist at Stanford studying mindset. And she wanted to look at the effects of mindset on exercise, one of my favorite topics in my research life. And so she went to a number of big hotels with lots of different floors, people, the cleaning staff cleaning hundreds of rooms a day. And she subdivided them into the experimental and the control. For the experimental, she brought all the cleaners into a room, 5 minutes. All she did is told them all about the effects of moving your body on your brain. And she said, actually, the Surgeon General analyzed your level of activity and changing the sheets and cleaning the whole room. And you are doing medium to high on your exercise level. So keep doing that job. In the control group, she told them everything except that last part about the Surgeon General, that exercise is good for your brain. See you later. 3 months later, they came back. And you know what happened? The group that was in the exercise group that was told that the Surgeon General analyzed their activity, they lost significantly more weight. This experiment was not about weight loss. It was about mindset and intention around exercise. They had better job satisfaction. They had a more healthy hip to waist ratio relative to those control experimenters, the control workers. That says that what you believe about your movement, what you're doing, really has an effect on your physiology. And so I use this all the time so that every single time I work out, I am thinking, this is helping my body, my muscles are getting stronger, I am helping myself every time. Every time I walk to the subway, I tell myself that. That is the power of mindset. My third example, actually, before I go on to the third example, I wanted to ask you, Zoe, around mindset and emotional regulation that you address a lot in your work. What does that mean for you?
Yes, thank you. I was going to sort of squeeze in, so thank you for asking me that question. We spend a lot of time talking about coping and resilience, and one of the techniques that we want in sort of our prevention world, so how do we get to a place where students don't need clinical care, and one of those is learning to regulate one's emotions. And so exactly what you're talking about, this power of mindset, we call it name, frame, and tame, right? But it's the same thing. You're naming the emotion, you're framing it in a way that is helpful and positive, and then you attempt to tame it using various techniques, including
mindset.
And the next one.
Oh, the next one, which is movement. So one of the things I've studied the longest in my neuroscience research lab in the Center for Neuroscience here is effects of physical activity on the brain. So what happens every single time you move your body? You're walking to the subway, you're walking to Kimmel, you're walking to all your different classes. Did you know that every single time you move your brain, you are releasing a whole bunch of neurochemicals in your brain? What are those neurochemicals? You've heard of them. Dopamine, serotonin, noradrenaline, endorphins, growth factors. Okay, so those are good. What is that going to do for your brain? If you had a lot of serotonin and dopamine, what is that going to do? What do you think how is that going to change the way your brain functions, do you think? Sleep well. You're going to sleep well later because you've moved, yes. Yes, motivation. Dopamine is our reward neurotransmitter. That is what gets released when you win the lotto, when you have sex, when you eat chocolate. All those good things. Serotonin is what clinicians prescribe for, or to release more serotonin is what clinicians prescribe in depression. It is the happy neurotransmitter. So here's the first kind of visualization that I want to leave with you today. So this is, what to leave with to help. Every single time you move your body, it's like giving your brain a wonderful bubble bath of neurochemicals, a bubble bath of dopamine, a bubble bath of serotonin. That is why you feel better. And it's one thing to say that, okay, she said bubble bath and you're gonna feel better. But it's another thing to really address it. And Zoe, you're gonna ask me the most common question that I get around exercise? Okay. Oh, okay. So first I'll do it, and then she's going to ask me the most common question.
It's my question.
Okay, yes. And yeah, her very useful, interesting question to ask. But what I wanted to do is right here in the lecture, I want to demonstrate for you the power of moving your body. So because I'm an experimentalist, I want to do a pre-post measure. So I'm going to ask you all out. Go to menti.com, MENTI.com, and then use that code that you see up there. Sorry, it's so small. It's 4708-6575. 4708-6575 at menti.com. And all you're going to do is tell me how you feel right now. Be honest, I can't track who's doing it. How are you feeling right now on Eclipse Day at 2:50? I'm just guessing. And we'll start seeing responses come in. Okay, good. Nice. Oh, online people out there, please join in. Menti.com, 4708-6575, so we can start to get a flavor of how people are feeling. And group, you have just confirmed the consistent response that I've gotten from over 100 of experiments that I've done, no matter whether it's fifth graders or CEOs, whether I do it at 9 a.m. or 4 p.m. The biggest word in the middle of my word cloud is always tired. It always is. Everybody is tired. I've done it all over the country, mostly on the East Coast, but everybody is tired. Okay, let's see if we can change that. And so we're gonna change it with a bubble bath of neurochemicals. I'm gonna ask you to stand up. Okay, so all we're gonna do is, you're gonna do what I do, say what I say. This is a movement exercise. Did I mention I'm a physical exercise instructor? Well, I'm a physical exercise instructor. We're gonna do this all together. Hit it back there. Could I get
Maybe I'm going through a
4, 3, 2, 1. Punch right, left, good, right, left. Don't punch your neighbor, go right, left. I say, I am strong now. You say, I say, I am Superwoman strong. You. I am superhero strong. You. I say, we are really strong. You. New move, uppercuts, right and left, right and left. 4, 3, 2, 1. I say, I am inspired now. You. Again, I am inspired right now. You. I say, we are inspired now. You. You move. Right, left, right, left. I say, I am on fire now. You. We are on fire right now. You. In dialogue is on fire now. We are on fire Actually, before you sit down, could you turn to the same people that you said hello to at the beginning, and could you tell them, you have a beautiful brain. You have a beautiful brain. You have a beautiful brain. Okay, now, second part of the experiment, very, very important. Go back to Menti.com, use that same number, 4708-6575, and answer the question, now, how do you feel? We have moved our bodies for approximately 1 minute and 34 seconds. I just made that up, but it wasn't very long. And so, half a year, that's good. Tired is smaller. Okay, good, good. We'll just let that run. But you have now also confirmed the result that I always get. We kick tired out of the center of the word cloud, and we get something like happy or energized in the middle there. Literally with 1 minute to 2 minutes of moving our body. And that is the power of physical activity.
So, Wendy,
Yes.
my question, and,
Yes.
and conveniently, it's the most common question,
Yes,
but it's
it is.
definitely mine. Is how little exercise
Ah.
do we really need to feel these positive effects?
Yeah, that is such a good practical question. And the answer is clinical studies have shown that just 10 minutes of walking can significantly lower your depression and anxiety levels. How many have already walked 10 minutes a day? Okay, so I'm going to ask you to add on to the power of your 10-minute walk, that power of mindset. Because now you know that your 10-minute walk to or from class is releasing dopamine, releasing serotonin, benefit from all of that together.
For those of us who can't exercise,
Yeah.
just physically, that's not something they can do.
Yeah.
I wonder if you could talk about other ways of turning down the volume. And
Sure. So, I think that's where the power of mindset comes in, thinking about your situations in a new way. It's not about only being Pollyanna, but really kind of approaching life as a glass half full instead of glass half empty. Meditation is available to everybody. I talk about that least amount of movement that you need walking. It's not triathletism. I'm not asking people to become a triathlete. Most of us can walk. If you have to do it with crutches, that's fine. If you're wheeling yourself, that's still great exercise. I think a really important point is that everything counts in terms of movement. Gardening, that's great. We are New Yorkers. We walk all the time. We have it over those suburb people that are driving their cars so much. So take advantage of that as much as you can. And if you can't, if you can't manage any movement at all, that meditation is there. And if you don't like my box breathing, there's only about 1,000 more YouTube videos that are free that you can try out different breath meditations, which are so powerful.
I listened to one of your interviews where you talked about the tea drinking with the monks. I really enjoyed that because it's not physical, but it's still a way to sort of relax.
So one of the things that I do in my daily kind of practice is I practice this thing called tea meditation. And there was this monk that I learned it from. And what it is not tea bag meditation, but real tea where you brew the tea and let it seep, and then you pour it and you drink it. And every morning I go through this ritual of brewing and then drinking the tea. And after being a yo-yo meditator for many years and trying, guided meditations, I'll go to class and nothing stuck. The ritual and the process of that tea making, and it helps that I really like tea, really helped keep me in meditation for much longer. And the most common question there is, can I do it with coffee? And the answer is yes. You can do it try not to drink too much coffee in the morning. That might, defeat the purpose. but a quiet moment of calm, where really all you're doing is appreciating the smell, the taste, the warmth, maybe a pretty cup that you're using. All of these things are wonderful moments of reflection that do really well to turn the volume down on your anxiety.
Thank you. So many of us try to fend off what we call negative emotions, like fear and discomfort and anxiety, and yet you talk about them as being superpowers.
Yes, I do.
So can you tell us about that?
Sure. So, the next step of getting to good anxiety, first learning how to turn the volume down. And I gave you the top 3 in my book, Good Anxiety. I have a whole third part of that book that is a toolbox for all the things that you can do to turn the volume down. I have to mention that this morning at 9:30 a.m., I was in this room for our kitten event for the College of Arts and Science. It was end of semester kitten event. And oh my gosh, it just turned down my anxiety immediately when you could hold a tiny little kitten that fell asleep in your arms. Things like that. Okay, is there a randomized control study around kitten holding? No. But does it work? Yes, it does. So turn the volume down, appreciating that these negative emotions like anxiety are there for protection, that are telling us about things that bother us, or even in a better light, the things that we hold dear. But I think the most unique thing about this book is the way I came to think about about anxiety, not as, okay, let's just help you get over it, this horrible thing where I'm just going to help you get over it. I realized that it was a superpower. It was something that helped me. And I'm going to tell 2 stories about how everybody in this room can use anxiety as their superpower today. First one, most easy one to apply. The power of your own anxiety to fuel your productivity. And this one I was doing, but it took a lawyer that I met at a birthday party once to put it into words. This was early on in my writing of the book, and I told her I was writing this book on anxiety. She said, "Oh, I am a high-paid lawyer here in New York because of my anxiety." And I said, "Oh, tell me your secret." And she said, well, I've always had high levels of anxiety, all growing up. That's just part of my characteristic. But I realized that if I took my what-if list for my case that I was working on, what if the what if the defense does this? What if the defense does that? What if the judge does this? What if the judge does that? And I turned those what-ifs into to-dos. So what if every single thing, I do something about it, even ask somebody, get some more information about it. She realized that all of those what-ifs were actually really powerful things to make her case better, and she started using it. And so I said, oh, that's great, I'm gonna do that too. So I do it, my list comes up right before I'm going to go to sleep. I don't know if anybody has that. Like right before I'm going to go to sleep, it's like, oh, what if I didn't do that right? What if I didn't do that right? And I don't get up and do it, but I got into the habit the next day. I address each one of those what ifs, and it makes my correspondence better. It makes me feel better. It does make me more productive. So that is what I recommend that you all do. Use your superpower of productivity, which is your anxiety working for you, pointing you towards what should you be paying attention to, and now you can do something about it. The last superpower that I'm going to leave you with is my favorite. It is one that I realized as I was writing my book, because I had to go through all of my own anxieties. And my oldest anxiety is an anxiety of social anxiety. Many of you students will have this as well. I was a very shy young child, but I was really interested in school, and I really wanted to ask questions and get more involved, but I was too anxious. What if I said something really stupid, and then everybody thought I was stupid? That was, the script that went through my mind for years and years and years and years. But I went into academia, and one day I found myself at the front of the classroom. And I realized, not that day, but later, that I automatically kind of came early, stayed late to answer everybody's question. Because not just the ones that raise their hands in class have questions, you all have questions, but maybe different levels of anxiety, just like I had, to actually ask that question. So a little easier to ask just one-on-one. Then I realized, oh my God, my own personal form of anxiety just gave me a window onto a form of empathy that I was giving my students. That actually makes me the teacher that I am today. And you might think, okay, I'm not a teacher. It doesn't matter. Think about your most common form of anxiety. You know what it feels like. You know what it looks like. And when you see it happening, when you see somebody else suffering from it, all you have to do is give them a hand, give them a hi, give them a smile. Often you're in a meeting and you're having this great conversation and somebody is standing there all quiet. Invite them in because they probably are suffering from that same form of anxiety that you have. So that is turning your own knowledge of your own form of anxiety that we all have similar into the gift of empathy. And I can't think of anything that we need more in the world today than higher levels of empathy for each other.
Thank you, Wendy, and I think we're going to end on that. I do have a bunch of pre-submitted questions from the audience. I think we're going to be able to ask only one before we go look at the sun. Or not, whatever you want to do. I wanted to ask you, particularly because we're in academia, and there's a lot of people who suffer from what they call test anxiety.
Test anxiety, yeah.
And it can be detrimental to one's performance. You get there, you're feeling anxiety.
Yeah.
So do you have any tips on avoiding test anxiety?
Yeah. I have a couple of different tips for avoiding test anxiety. One is practice tests, so that process of getting questions and answering them becomes much more familiar, so it's not new, even if you can do it in the room that you're going to do it in. Make it like, talk about it. Don't have it be this big, scary thing. Talk about it with who? Talk about it with your classmates. Talk about it with your TA. Talk about it with your professor. Make it something that is an active thing that you are going to do, you are getting ready for, and approach it in that kind of active, proactive kind of way can be very helpful for test anxiety.
Thank you.
Okay.
I get to look at the top of a brain while I thank you. So this is fun. But thank you, Wendy. Thank you for your just accessible information on anxiety. And Zoe, thank you for your clinical view. If you really are in that bad anxiety, reach out to the Wellness Exchange. And I think you now have some tools to really keep yourself in that good anxiety and use it for good and not evil, as they would say. But thank you again, and thank you. And join us next week. We're going to be in dialogue again with Jonathan Haidt on Wednesday evening, I believe at 6 or 6:30. Where's my person? But it's on the website. And also on the website, we record everything. This was a wonderful lecture. I would encourage you to share it with your friends, your fellow students, your fellow colleagues, because your message a lot of people need to hear right now. So thank you again.
I have a stress reducing tool that I brought for everybody. So here you go.
Here, you get a picture taken.